Hello, everybody. We are live with Johanna. We are going to speak about Gene Key 22, about our archetype, the invitation to grace. And Johanna, I feel like I already know you. It feels like all Ashley's friends are my friends.
Good, because I need more friends.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here, and you have helped us so much with this, with the creation of this archetype. And that's been, I feel like you took us partly into a process of creativity where we were like, this gate is not, or this archetype is not like the other ones. This is different.
It is. It's really different. And so it did take a team effort completely to make this happen. You know, even me coming in as a contributor, I could see the amount of work and love that you guys have put into this. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And you have it in your SQ, right? Or
yes.
Yeah. So that's in the very middle. Like, it's the core Gene Key, the core of the chart.
Yeah, it is. It's been the core of my life.
Yeah, so I know it's like 2 minutes before, but I feel like I just want to like ask you so many questions. So I'm gonna try to like be patient here until we have people coming on.
I'm sharing to our groups. We are live on YouTube and we are live on the Unlock Your Design Facebook page, and I am sharing right now. So we'll give people like a couple more minutes to hop on.
I'm going to share it too.
Hello, if you're hopping on too, if you're joining us and you're watching us right now, say hello. We can see your comments. Oh, is Johanna here?
Yeah, I was like, where did she go?
Oh, she's gone. Oh, no, she's back. I don't know. Where did you go? You left us.
I hit the wrong button and I was like, well, there we go. I'm gone.
You were supposed to be on the bottom so that you were by yourself. So it's us and then you.
I always get this like, what happens with it? I can be behind.
Sorry about that. Definitely Gene Key 22 thing right there. I was being impatient. Impatient. So how are you guys handling this full moon?
I feel like I'm better today. Yesterday, I just felt like it was shining, like everything that Neptune is veiling in the, I felt like it was shining on that, and just a lot of heavy tears actually, and kind of, yeah, I guess it's for me just surrendering to the feminine somehow and just letting that happen. I was happy it was on a Sunday and not on a Monday. What about you?
It's been good overall. I mean, I haven't had any full moons are actually pretty good for me. It's I'm pretty much ruled by the new moon. So the new moons is when I usually have the most, big transformations. The full moon, I just don't sleep. It's just too much energy.
Right.
It's very activating. Very activating. Do we want to start?
Yeah, let's start.
Let's start. I feel like we just need to start talking.
Yes. Okay. And I just shared everywhere, so we're good now.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I kind of want to dive right into that SQ, the 22, and ask you, is it 22? What is the line? And can you tell us a little bit about just, what is it to have the 22, this mother archetype in the center of your chart?
Well, my line is 2, so it's 22.2. So that number actually is a very strong number for me. It's always been a factor in my life. So for me, the Divine Mother and how I feel it is the energy of the mother that you always wanted, like the person that you could you know that you could just go to. She's never going to go anywhere. She's stationary. It's the kind of energy where you walk in and you just melt and you completely relax and you let go and the tears flow and whatever it is, laughter, tears, I've had it all. And at the same time, even, when you're just crying, but you're laughing at the same time because you just can't believe how much is being released. It's just such a neutralizing, loving energy. And the only way I can explain it, and even that is hard, is just utter infinite acceptance. Like there is not a single condition, a single judgment. There's nothing. It's just complete and utter acceptance and allowance, and in a space that is so entirely safe. And it has taken me a lifetime to open that gift and to allow myself to experience it within me and not seeking it outside of me, because I've had a life filled with suffering. And the only place that I have found where I can dissolve that energy is in grace, is to really just have that, for myself and be in that energy and not look outside of myself to relieve my suffering. And funny enough, is Ashley and I actually we did combo together. The frog called us. And we wanted to experience, and I know I wanted to experience, grace through suffering intentionally, right? So I've had a lot of suffering in my life that I wouldn't say was my doing, right? It was just something that I was brought into and had to endure and find. But when you do something intentionally that creates suffering, it's really eye-opening, because you know it's coming and you can completely find that place inside of you and surrender right then in that moment. And you just watch the pain shift immediately. And because we did it intentionally, it was probably one of the best things I ever did, because it allowed me to quickly find that space and then just relax and watch the suffering that we had self-created just fall. And it's like the pain was still there, but we weren't feeling it nearly as intently as before.
I just posted the link to that as well. So if you guys want to see that combo experience, we recorded it for you.
We docu-series that thing.
It was an amazing experience. And that was like my first intentional experience with Grace, inviting her in, and then also the acceptance of the pain. And even the lady was saying, you're going to find out what your reaction is to pain. When we did the Sananga, it's like you figure out, are you a fighter? Are you a flighter? What do you freeze? What happens? And I wanted to get up and get out.
I'm flight too.
I don't know what to do. Yep. You can't leave.
And that's, even though my core wound is denial, my core wound is denial. And obviously that shows up. When I look at the keys personally, I see the line numbers as the core wounds. And that's definitely the case for me, because I denied my own grace for myself most of my life. I denied it and was like, you have to suffer, and for someone like me, I would say my true core wound, aside of it being denial from what the gene keys was shame. And it was shame of my own suffering, to be honest. It was a shame of the suffering that I was put through. And so I was kind of self-punishing, right, by not allowing myself to have grace. So when we did it intentionally, it was, I'm intentionally going to put myself through suffering in order to expand my consciousness, to cleanse my body. And I'm going to accept this in, because otherwise it's going to hurt really bad. And so it really was a big shift for me with my physical body, allowing that in, because that's always the last thing that for me is my physical body is always the last one to get on board. Mm-hmm. But it's so much more than that. As Ashley and I and you discussed ahead of this, it really isn't something that you can label one thing. Right. So there's also the energy of patience, which is something that people don't talk about with this gene key a lot. And for me, the opposite of patience is waiting. And if you're a manifester, right, if your Archetype is a manifester, waiting is deadly for you. it will kill any manifestation you have, and it will make your physical body go through all kinds of things. And that's what I was doing. And I was waiting, because when you're waiting, it's like you're in the ocean and you're paddling and you're trying to keep your head above water. But when you surrender into grace and you allow for patience to come in, and you just make do and have bliss and joy and prepare and surrender into that trust that everything's divinely happening, that's when you float and you make do with that time. So with patience, you're making space to receive your manifestation, right? You're making space to receive the end of the suffering, the peace to come in, whatever it may be. When you're waiting, you are in an active state. So you're utilizing your energy, you're wasting your energy, and you're not making any space. You're taking up space, right? You're making chaos in that. So there's many aspects of the Divine Mother. But if there's one thing that I could say that explains her the best, it's just that space of utter surrender, where you walk in and you just melt and everything falls away and you feel safe, and you know that no matter what you do right now or what you say or what happens, that you are safe to do so. It's that ultimate safety that you need. And for a lot of people, the reason why we are struggling and suffering in this world is because none of us feel safe. Mm-hmm. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen with the world, with our governments, with our personal lives, with everything. And so many of us, our synthetic nervous system is constantly in fight, flight, or freeze because of that uncertainty. And we don't fold into ourselves and allow ourselves to find that peace amongst all of this chaos and say, inside of me is where I anchor. Inside of me is where I find my peace. If I can just utterly take full responsibility for my emotions, for what I am doing in my life, for what I am creating, there is no blame, there is no shame, there is no guilt, there's nothing. Everything is created by me through at the very least, through my response system to the outer world. And if I can just simply anchor and trust in my heart and find that safety within me through grace, then everything else becomes cake. Like everything else just kind of falls away. And then you have to kind of check in with like a thermometer and be like, what's going on in the world? Because I have just gone inward into me and I'm living in my own little world in there, right? So that's how I experience her on a pretty much everyday basis. But we could talk about this topic for hours.
I feel it's interesting because I was mentioning my experience yesterday, and we were in the 22 too yesterday, and I was saying that I had so many tears, and what's new for me, because I have nothing in my emotional center, I usually my feelings always have to do with what's on the outside. If somebody's there and maybe is angry or is, then my feelings are always monitoring first. Does the other person leave? Does the other person, what? And then when I know that, it's kind of my emotions are always a response with that open center that is influenced. And I could feel something yesterday where I was staying on the inside, and I was saying, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what happens on the outside. The other doesn't matter. And that was so new for me, because I feel like when you're always flooded by other people's emotions, when you're non-emotional, you don't even know what it is to have yourself as reference point. And I feel like grace was teaching me, this is what it is to have yourself as reference point.
It is. And, it's something that I suffered with. As soon as I awakened, I immediately felt the collective's energy. I was clearing for the collective. I was purging for the collective. And I mean, Ashley was there. There were times where I was miserable. And so I had to learn to shift and to create, not from separation, but to create rock solid boundaries of, I get to choose what and who I cleanse for, right? Or purge or clear. Like I am here on this journey to have a life filled with joy and bliss and not suffering and not pain. So I don't have to clear for the collective. I don't have to do these things. And it took me a long time to really get where I was like, I'm done. And I had to build those strong boundaries made of my values and who I am and what my non-negotiable are and what I'm not, meaning I'm not going to take any shit, but at the same time, I'm always going to have your heart and mind, because the thing about grace too is its duality, right? We came here to experience the flip side, to have that duality, to have that mirror. So when you walk into that temple inside of you, that grace, it's like a hall of mirrors. It's going to show you your blind spots. It's going to show you the pain, the personalities, the fear personalities, the inner children, the wounds, the many faces of the ego and the spiritual ego, all of these different aspects. And you're going to see, and if we could all just take this one lesson from grace, is that if you can accept and take responsibility for every aspect of your being, this world would be completely different. And so within grace, we understand that when I see someone being mean to me or being rude to me or whatever, I am you, you are me. I can see myself through them and I can have compassion for them. Now, that doesn't mean I have to take their pain or their hurt that they're dishing out, but I can look at them and send them love instead, because I have done the work to hold space for myself and say, you know what, in this space, I am free to have my emotions, and that those are okay to experience, and that this is my truth and this is this person's truth, and they are free to have their emotions. And I can see that they are coming from a wounded place, right? Because I can see them. Because the other aspect of grace, there are so many, is listening, is truly listening to somebody's words and how they're expressing them and the energy behind them, the pain, the excitement, the innocence, all of it. And in today's world, we're so busy coming up with the next comeback in our head and our next defense, and how can I fix you, and how can I make this better, and how can I prove that I'm worthy to you, and how can I prove that my work is worthy of helping you, or whatever the case may be. And we forget to just allow the person to hear themselves and say, I hear you, sister. Like, I hear your words. And I want you to know you are safe to have those words. I'm not here to tell you those words are right or wrong or judge you, right? But I just want to hear your words. And so often today, that's just not happening. And I'm so blessed because I have Ashley and I have another friend who I can literally tell them anything and they won't judge me. They're just going to be there and be like, I hear you. Like, I got you. It's okay. You can say whatever you want to say, and we need more of that in the world. You have to talk or I'll just keep talking.
I'm thinking you're saying that you have a line 2 in your SQ and you have a line 2 in your core. So I'm wondering if the suffering that you were feeling before, if it has to do with not having that mirror that you're saying now that you have in Ashley and your friend. It's like, is that part of your suffering that you didn't have that reflection in the other?
Support, not being supported is part of it. And not only that, but it is a big part of the suffering, but the other part was denial, admitting that I had those feelings, admitting that because for a very short piece of my story is I spent probably 1.5 years in a very deep state of the dark night of the soul. And it led me to the edge of suicide, of wanting to go, to that extreme. But nobody knew. There was probably 2 people in the whole world that knew I was in that much pain, because on the outside, I was so good at wearing the mask and portraying this person with a perfect life. And it was because I was in such denial of how deep my pain was and how rooted it was in everything that I was creating in my reality. Like, everything I was creating was through the lens of my wounds. And it just kept coming back that way. So then I just spent a whole life suffering because everything I was creating through this filter, this lens. Because here's the great thing about grace and understanding it is, I really believe that it's rooted in the 3 lower chakras and uprooting that and transforming it into that heart space and allowing it to refilter, almost like when there's a controlled burn, right? So I had to stop. I had to become aware of what I was denying. And once you become aware of it, you can't ever not be aware of it, right? You can still choose not to do anything, but you know that you have now created that. Like, you know that you have, and I think the omnipresence really comes in the vocation and helps that, because you're able to see all time and space and see where you're denying or where you're repressing. So I had to face it. I had to accept that I was denying it. And then at that point, I could allow for that transmutation to occur, that fire to rise and burn all of that up and accept it. Like, open my arms and say, I accept these parts and pieces of me. And that's when it collapses. That's when we collapse our bodies into one and come into unity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw that in your attraction sphere, in your Venus sequence, your attraction, you have so many second lines. So it seemed to be that theme of denial and not having the support, not having the mirroring, being disappointed over and over again. And then there's something with that 62 in your life's work too that has to do with precision, but it also has to do with perfection. For me, it's my North Node. So I can see how it can look basically perfect on the outside. It can look empowered in the first line on the outside, but there is so much psychosis in a way in it from that evolution.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you ever get trapped in psychosis, I mean, it's the only way I can explain it is, people who are diagnosed with mental disorders or multiple personality disorder or anything that has to do with outward expression of our multidimensional body. I mean, it's when you have Gene Key 62, you understand that struggle is real. The work that I have done to get to where I am now, I can actually fully isolate and have conversations with different parts of my being in a very healthy way. You know what I mean? And really work things out. And, but I was denying all of that as well. I mean, even though, that's not the wound for 62, you don't want to ever admit that you have all that kind of inner conversation and dialogue going on, especially in a world when you're first waking up and you don't feel safe to say it because you're afraid you're going to go into a mental hospital. You have to have a lot of grace for yourself just to go through an awakening period.
Right. Yeah. And there's something I'm thinking, because I have the 61, it's my South node, but it's also my XQ. And knowing that we have had Pluto in it now for a while, and in January we had several, like now in Mars, and also in January we had so many planets, Pluto and Saturn, and wondering, how do you feel? Like, I feel like that could have been detrimental for you if this awakening, if you were still in denial and that would have come, it could have like really blown up for you. How have you experienced, or can you feel that Pluto is there, and that it even has to do maybe with your role in the collective to shine light on something that you really already have been through, or something like that?
If I would not have done so last year, I would say most of last year I spent working on clearing and finding a way to clear what my spirit team calls the trauma alert system in the body, and really integrating my wounds. Had I not done that, I think when these conjunctions started happening, I probably would have lost it. Like, I don't know what would have happened to me. I actually experienced it very blissfully. I was really nervous about the Saturn-Pluto conjunction because the Saturn, is the father wound, and the second phase of my awakening was really blown out and expanded when my father died. And so I had a lot of nervousness around that, but thankfully I had done the work. But even with Pluto, my Pluto is 57, and that's all up for me. That's my hearing my higher self and the other parts of me. It is trusting every part of my being. It is self-empowering and self-guidance. And one thing I can tell you is with these big conjunctions is I have been pretty much given every opportunity to seek outside of myself. And every time I chose not to, I could literally feel my consciousness expand even more. And every time I trusted and just said, I'm no regrets, like, I'm just going to go in, this is my decision, I've had big shifts. Right. And so I think it's a testament to doing this work, because, today I faced something that tremendously would have given me PTSD and would have set me over the edge, especially on a full moon, especially with all the energy that's happening today. And I felt none of it. I had nothing activate. I had no triggers. I had nothing. And it's not always comfortable, but when you can find that place inside of you that is your peace, that is your anchor, where you can take a breath and I tell people, go into a restaurant bathroom stall if you have to, and just sit there and breathe and find that space inside of you that gives you absolute peace. And then go into that space and allow yourself to breathe and set the world down before you react to that trigger, and then process it out. If you can do that, you can clear any wound you have. I mean, it's not hard. It's just a matter of being consistent and showing up for yourself. And that was the biggest thing for me, was showing up for myself every day and allowing that grace and allowing myself to just be patient and be in the moment and be happy right now and not later or when or any of those other things. And it's just one of the most important things we can ever teach in this world is this energy right here. Right.
So if I see right on the chart, you have the 22 is also your south node, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like, when I first read what you were writing, when we were preparing this archetype, I could feel like it was like a voice that came from before. It's like it feels like you already did this. It's in your DNA. You already did this in another lifetime. And then the human being came in and forgot in this lifetime. And then you had to go through all this denial. And now you have done your Venus work and you're remembering. Because that voice comes from somewhere where even reading Richard Rudd and reading Raw and speaking with Ashley, it's like, it's not really there. But when we spoke to you, that's why also we took your text and put it in as a transmission, because we felt like it's coming from before. And now I actually hadn't looked this closely at your chart to see, well, it's there. This is the environment probably that you have been unlocking lifetime after lifetime, and that how to do. And I think it's a first line too. So it's like really about your self-empowerment, really about also your repression and your self-honesty. So that's so interesting to see the chart.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely true. It really does feel like that. And I'm lucky enough that I have accessed many of my past lives and I'm able to go there and be there and know the lessons. And so that would actually be a very true statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then what is your Saturn? I feel like that's part of, is it 46? I can't really see. The red Saturn, the design Saturn.
40.3.
Oh, there it is.
40. Okay, yeah, divine.
She has it in her north node too. In her north node, it's 40.4. In her unconscious Saturn, it's 40.3.
Yeah, I feel that even goes together with looking at your motivation. It's hope. And the hope motivation is basically that, okay, I'm just going to stay, with this and hope it's all going to turn out okay. It's right. Capacity for embrace in the worst, It's even like your attraction, the 28, jumping into the dark waters and saying, the Scorpio kind of wants to dive really deep. And then that motivated some hope. It's like, it's not going to fix anything. It's just going to have patience and embrace and let divine will alchemize whatever
right
to be integrated. Yeah.
Well, and I'm at the point now on my journey where when I get triggered or when there's some kind of big energetic shift, like right now, like this month is really big for me for my solar year. This March is a huge year, a big pivotal turning point for me. But when I get triggered or there's a big shift, I get kind of excited because I just will start singing, I'm making space, because that's what's happening, and every time when it hits, I'm like anybody else, I'm like, this sucks, you're in the thick of it, but I don't fight it anymore. Whereas before I used to fight it, everything, I would just fight it so much. And when I checked on, I'm sure you guys have gone on the 12 moons and you do the cosmic astrology, and they pull your information. It says that my purpose is to endure in order to nurture. And let me tell you, 35 plus years of enduring, it's time for me to just stop enduring and start nurturing, because I got it all. I'm good. I have lots, my heart is wide open, and I'm like, I will hold space for all of you, because I know what it feels like. I just want to hug people. That's all I want to do, is just hug people.
Yeah, and you have that, your manifestor channel is the 35-36, and I can see the black part is the 35, so kind of the conscious, what you've been doing, and then it's like I can see how you would know yourself well enough to be able to tap into that 36 and that compassion and that humanity, and how much the 36 and the 22 are connected, because it's saying yes to the invitation to grace that leads you in to be that nurturer. So it's even there the story is told through your chart.
And you have to invite people into this. It is 100% a portal, because if you think about it, Ashley posted a video of a man holding space for was it a little girl or a little boy? I can't remember, but for his child. And, just, you can't force somebody to surrender. You can't force it. All you can do is sit there and be the divine mother, be the energy that isn't moving. It's saying, I'm not going anywhere. You are safe to do whatever it is you need. Whenever you're done, I'm going to be here. I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to rush you. I'm just going to be here with you. And think about it as women, as mothers, for the ones that have children. You have two levels of this, and this is going to show up in the shadow aspects of grace. You have the helicopter mom, the hoverer, right? Who's like, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to control it. I'm going to make it better. Let me make your boo-boos better, And we do it with our friends. I've done it. We do it with our significant others. We do it with our clients. And then you have the nurturing mom, the mom where you can just be like, I'm just going to tell you everything, and I just want to curl up. And I never had that. I didn't have that mom. I didn't have the mom where I could curl up in bed with her and just cry. I never had any of that. So I didn't know. I literally had to reach a space where I found grace within me, because I was not shown it. I was never shown it. And so if you can show other people what grace is and invite them in, and just by opening that door and saying, I'm here. I mean, that's literally all you have to do. And people will pace, and they'll fight with it, and they'll fight with themselves, because that's what we're used to doing. We're very stubborn humans, and we're very resistant to change. And eventually they get on board, but you have to open that door and say, it's here. It's welcoming for you.
And Ashley, you have the 36 and the 28, I think, and you're a mother. So how do you experience, I mean, the 36 we've spoken about, but the combination of the 28 and the 36, have you ever thought of like what those two energies do together?
I mean, yes, my kids are the ones that woke me up, and I struggle with being a mom the most. And so the most turbulence I've experienced was coming into this role as mother, because my unconscious earth is the 10, which is like the behavior of the self, but also self-obsession. And so they've had to make me put myself down, like put over here, so that I can bring them to the front, and I wasted so much time ignoring my kids in the beginning. And it took forever for me to wake up. I always joke that it took 3 boys to wake me up, and the chaos that ensues with them, the turbulence around them. And then I had to rebirth myself for my daughter. So like, they're making me step up my game and give me purpose, and we called this trend at the 22, the divine mother. That's what Johanna sees it through her eyes. And I can feel that that's truth as well. Everybody has their own experience with grace and what kind of mother she is to them. And the 37 is the human mother, and we just went through that one. And I think I just saw that you had it in your south node, Johanna. I didn't realize that you have 37.4 in your south node. So that's interesting, having that human mother archetype, and it's in detriment. So like the mother you had was that example. So like the past mother you've had is not the grace mother you have now. No. You know, and that's the biggest thing that I struggled with. And even when the 37 came, all these wounds of guilt showed up for me, and I was like crying on the phone to Bella about how much of a crappy mom I was. I can't even tell you what I even said, because now I don't remember, because you know how I am with remembering things. It's just like I just need to get it out, and then it like shifts, and then it's gone, and then I can move on and evolve. And
you needed a neutral place to speak those words into that would dissolve and transform on instant impact. And that's what grace does, because that's the whole thing. When you're talking to somebody, people think, well, I don't want to talk about my problems with them because then I'm going to, speak it into existence. I used to think that, because we are the creators of our reality. But there's a difference when you're connecting with somebody to experience grace and just allow yourself to own those words. And as you do in a safe space, that's when they alchemize immediately. And that's why you had that experience.
And it was it just went in transit. I'm like, of course I'm experiencing this now with it in transit. And Bella has the 13, which I feel like when somebody can listen, like truly listen, they create a space where everything can pour out of you. That's what grace does too. Right. And so I like every person that I've had like really close relationship with it, like me and you, and now me and Bella. My husband's like, well, what do they do that I can't do? And he has 22 in his radiance. And I'm like, well, you gotta just listen. You need to just let it come out of me. But instead, we're always bickering, and I'm triggering him. So like, there's no space for grace. There's just space for turbulence and crisis. That's it.
Yep.
But it's beautiful to have that partnership and that relationship where you can just, it dissolves in thin air, like you were saying. And that's literally what it feels like. The 22 and the 47 come together, and it's like, speak it into the space of grace, and it dissolves.
Yeah, and even I feel that 28 somehow has to do with that, because we know that even if you're in deep waters, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, Ash is drowning. I'm going to be like, oh, she's down there, finding treasures.
Especially Ashley, because Ashley's the queen of I'm dying.
Yep, I'm dying. I'm 36 in my evolution, and I'm Virgo. She's dying all the time. And self-obsession. I don't know. That's pretty potent. I'm sorry for anyone that's dealing with me, but I'm not sorry, because I'm awesome too. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to mention this too. Johanna's a manifester, right? We already know that Johanna's a manifester. We saw her chart. But Johanna has created like success and lots of money and all this stuff for herself before she woke up. Can you imagine somebody having the Pluto in 57, which is about your intuition, and having that, like, that's what woke her up. And she realized that, oh crap, this isn't the life I want, and I'm not happy, and I'm not fulfilled, and I'm hungry for something, and I want purpose, and I don't know what it is, and all that brink of suicide and health stuff had to come to wake you up to the potential and possibility that awaited you on the other side of the veil, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it's a purification. Grace is a purification, and it's a pathway. And I always say, because I deal with the majority of what I deal with working with people is trauma, because the healthiest person walking around is fractal 22 times, right? At the very minimum, you're fractal 22 times. I just didn't realize right now that number was 22. So that's pretty funny, if you ask me. But it's fractal 22 times. So people feel broken. We feel like we have holes. And because we have given, every time we experience something that is chaotic, that is traumatic, that is painful, we leave a piece of ourselves there because we don't want to remember it. And so we feel like we're broken. And when we allow for that grace, we become the light in the dark. We become the stillness in the sound. We become the love that we needed. We give ourselves permission to feel, to be angry, to grieve, and We give ourselves permission to speak our truth and to own it. And in doing so, that's when the purification comes in. It comes in through ownership. One of the very first things I remember ever learning, I went through Jack Canfield's life coaching program. And one of the only thing that I ever took away from that whole thing was E plus R equals O. And it's the event plus the response or reaction equals the outcome. And from that moment on, I knew that I was the creator of my reality in a way that I never knew it before. And everything comes from our response to what's happening, and that we are all just innocent people walking around with a lot of bullet holes. I mean, that's all we are, you know, and we just keep matching the wrong people to them. And we just need to purify and reclaim those parts of ourselves through grace, through allowing ourselves, especially the spiritual communities, especially this new age crap. It's like, no, we're not broken. We just need to reclaim ourselves and take responsibility for ourselves. That's it. Like that right there. Take responsibility for how you feel and what your life looks like today, and have grace for yourself, and your life will be okay. You will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, speaking about, creating wealth or prosperity, and looking at your sphere of culture, and it's 56.4, and how Richard says, actually, money can be created. You don't have to do the Venus work. You can still create money. So
Yeah.
for you, a fourth line, if you have the right network, and if you somehow make these people, if you give something that are enriching these people, you can make money. However, you can still be completely a mess on the inside, and it's not going to lead you to true sharing from the heart and to true enrichment. So, and I also can see the EQ and the culture on top of each other. You have, the kind of distraction in the 56, you have the hunger and the, all these things that are happening in the 35, that I can see these multiple personalities being like all kind of on the edges, and still it looks like you are making money. Still it looks like the network is all there, and to feel how, I mean, that can lead to craziness. Like, you have money coming in on the account, people think that everything is put together, but you are feeling like you are getting more and more distracted and less enriched. Is that part of your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've gone through, anybody who's followed me since before I considered myself a spiritual coach and I was just doing empowerment coaching, I have just being the 1-3, forget about the enrichment parts. I'm going to bring that back in, but I have gotten to highs and then been like, this doesn't work. It doesn't light me up. It doesn't bring me joy. And tore it all down. Like, I have done this so many times in my business. And in the beginning, I used to think something was wrong with me because I was like, I'm not very consistent here. People are going to think I'm crazy. But 1-3 is all about experimenting, and I had to find that. But the other piece is, for me, this is what I truly believe. Once you awaken and you start to find that light within you, you can no longer wear a mask. You can no longer make money in that way. It has to come from a space of overflow from your heart space. It has to come from that space of enrichment, not just service to other people, but service to self first. And what you have embodied, what you have done the work in, and you're sharing not just your teachings from what you've learned or what you've downloaded, but you're teaching it through the experience of grace, through, this is what I experienced with this, and now I'm going to share it from my heart. And when I don't do that, things don't work for me. So even though I may have gone through it and now I'm going to turn around and offer it, if it's not coming through the lens of how this helped me, how this made my life better, how this enriched me, then it's not going to touch the right people, and it's not going to be abundant, and it's not going to be prosperous. But on another piece of that is the fractalization that was happening. So for me, with all the pieces of my chart, not just that 56, but all those different personalities within me, I was aligning with my higher self because my higher self felt amazing. And she was already past the shadow work. She was already past, it was like, oh, this is where we are going, right? So when I experienced, I can't wait to get there, it was to be my higher self and be in that blissful, enriched, peaceful state all the time and just things flowing. But I was leaving behind the parts and pieces of me that weren't there yet. And so because I did that and I did it so many times, it didn't matter what. I could have offered you the most amazing course for $10 and nobody would have bought it because I wasn't all there. You have to be all in when you do this work. When you are awakened, you have to have all the parts and pieces of you, because otherwise those other pieces are going to be the more dominant energy that is communicating with the universe, because we are always manifesting. So I knew I was worthy. I knew I had a support system. I knew I had a network of people around me, a tribe, friends, other business people. Yet I still wasn't making any money because I had abandoned those parts and pieces of myself that were wounded, and those energies that were unconscious in my body, that were locked away. My inner child was locked away. I threw away the key. I was like, you don't get a say. I'm just going to bypass all of this. That was the louder frequency that the universe was pulling in. And so that's what I was manifesting more over and over and over again, was more lack, more feelings of not being supported. It was just kept coming, and it kept getting worse and kept getting worse, until it reached its point where I had no more choices. I had no more possibilities, no more opportunities, because that's what I had believed for myself, from denial, just from denying those parts of myself. So here I was, once again, I had gone from making a lot of money the year before to nothing the next year almost, because I was like, I'm going to align with this part of me and I'm going to go, and I'll come back for you later. And I never came back. So I literally went back into the dark night of the soul last year in a space of nothing. And I took about 2 months off, and I took that time and I just totally went into the energy of grace and purification and collecting, reclaiming those parts of me and sitting with them and breathing light back into those pieces of me. So when you talk about enrichment and making money and all that, yes, you can make money when you're not going on internally, but it's very much, to me, it's very much about, you manifest your state of being. So whatever is the majority of your state of being, whatever majority frequency is running, that's what you're going to manifest. And I have to come from a space of overflow, or it just doesn't work, And so that's just, I think that's a big shift between non-awakened people and waked up, because before I could work in corporate, and I mean, I've always made a lot of money in my life, always, for other people. Mm-hmm. When I had to do it for myself, whole other story, because it wasn't coming from all of me. Does that make sense? I wasn't unified. I hadn't unified my bodies. I hadn't breathed my higher self and inner children into every chakra, into every cell. I hadn't taken ownership of those wounds. And I have experienced grace as a child, from going within to not feel the pain of being abused. But I wasn't doing it for myself now as an adult, it was like that. I didn't see it as an energy of always there for me, a state of being that I could access. I saw it as a place to hide. So there was a difference there, but enrichment 100% has to come from that heart space and being connected for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Wow. There's so much in this conversation. I could continue. I feel like I want to bring it back a little bit, because you are a manifester, and they're only like 8%, I think. So I would like to hear some advice maybe for manifestors out there that have those keys that are also very, like, manifestors, somehow it's a kind of masculine energy. It goes out in the world, it manifests. And then you have the mother keys and all that. So maybe some advice for manifestors out there. And also, I don't know if you have people live, you can also maybe type questions at the same time as Johanna is responding for the manifestor advices.
Yeah. So for manifestors, lots of advice. I would say one is master the art of patience. So know what you want. Be all in on it. Literally be all in. Be sure, and be sure within you, not through outside sources. And once you're anchored into that energy and you're sure that this is what you want for yourself in your life, these are your filters that you're going to run it through. So for me, I have a set of standards. I have a set of boundaries. I have my mission. Like, I have these things that every opportunity, every possibility, everything that I create or put out there is run through this filter. Is this me? Is this something that I can completely get behind? And then I put it out there into the world. And then you have to, at that moment, you have to prepare, be patient, make space, play, be present, any of those energies. Because if you get up in your head, if you start doubting, if you start doing all the things, then you are essentially putting your manifestations on the outside of you. And it's like they're there and you know they're there, but they can't come into port because you're over here doing and all that. We're not meant to do that. We're literally designed to have our vision and to pull in the people that are going to support and deliver our vision. So there has to be that balance of play and being present and joy, and creation. And we have, and here's the thing that I'm going to bring in. If you're a manifestor that's an entrepreneur, create whatever it is that you want to create. Don't try to pre-do it. Don't try to pre-offer it. Don't try to follow the business models that are out there today. They don't work. Create what you're meant to create and share it from your heart space, and it will be magic. But you have to do it that way. That's how we're designed, right? And having that support team is going to be big. There's something else that I know that is going to be important for manifestors. It's just learning if you're a manifestor, just as if you were a projector or reflector, you really just have to understand how your energy operates. You know, I can tell you that when I found human design before, well, actually, I think I found them around the same time, but I fell in love with human design because it really showed how I receive energy and how I send energy and how I use energy and how my aura worked. And for a manifestor, you know, it says you have that repelling aura. I was like, oh my God, because most of my life, people were intimidated by me and I didn't even do anything, you know? And I was like, why are you? But what you have to understand is your subconscious and unconscious aspects make up the majority of your auric field. So no matter what mask you put on, your energy doesn't lie. So you're going to repel people if underneath you're seething and angry and resentful, right? So it's really important to understand how your aura works, because the repelling aura, for me, what it's meant to do is to be that mirror for ourselves, that reflection, that cycle. And we're supposed to be constantly moving it and expanding it, but it's almost like a boundary for us. But that's how it's meant to be. It's almost like bouncing off of itself and helping us to purify and create, because we're so fast moving beings, you know? But if you have a lot going on underneath the surface that you are not aware of or in denial about, or just choosing not to sit with and accept, because that, I always say, awareness is the door, acceptance is the key. If you want to be free, you have to accept. And so once you do that, then your aura begins to be filled with love. Because I can tell you, if I'm in a funky energy, if I'm not in a good place, I will not go on Facebook Live. I will not talk to a client. I won't do anything, because my aura is going to do the speaking, and it's not going to make them feel safe to just let go what they need to do. So understanding your energy type and the work that you guys are doing with the 64 doors is so important. You don't have to live by it, but it will help you understand yourself and how you were designed to operate. And that was a game changer for me. So if you're a manifestor, or some of the other ones that aren't as, you know, they're not generators, even generators need to learn. But manifestors, we were so conditioned to work opposite of our design, you know, because that's why a lot of my abuse came in, because the person who was abusing me was intimidated by a child and their large energy, right? And so it's important to understand, because I almost think it validates us and helps us to not feel crazy, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And Ashley's back, and the baby.
The baby. And this is our little Gracie right there. Let me put my glasses on so I can see.
Say hi. She has 22 in her chart like 4 or 5 times. So we shall see what she experiences.
Oh, cool. Good. Do we have any questions?
I can't see any questions, Ashley. Can you see any questions?
No, I just see comments.
Lots of comments. Yeah. Comments.
Yeah. But the energy of grace is just, it's just mercy. It's just acceptance. It's just loving ourselves and saying it's okay. You know, it's just, it's okay. It's okay. And everybody should go out and find themselves a grace partner. We all need somebody that we can have that. But when I don't have that person, like this morning, I had an experience where I had grace through suffering, and the people that I always count on to be there, they weren't there. And instead of freaking out, I turned into myself and said, I'm going to be that grace, and I'm going to hold space for myself, and I'm going to talk this out, and I'm going to work my way through it. And I'm going to, you know, and so you have to know how to do it for yourself. But until you do, it's nice to experience it with somebody else, you know, and that's all we're ever being asked to do. We're never being asked to heal another, to fix another. We're being asked to reclaim the lost parts and pieces of ourselves, to feel whole and healed and be that light. And the more parts of you that you accept and integrate through this experience, the brighter your light is. And you are the example by living and committing and showing up for yourself every single day. There is no magic pill. There is no shortcut. The way is through. And that's it. And you can go through, you can walk through those fires if you can find grace within you. You can walk straight through those flames and you won't feel it as much as you did the resistance to it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When people have the 47 and the 22, many times I feel like it's somehow you have to be put on the cross, because it's through that acceptance that that your resurrection is coming to the world. And that's what it sounds like when I listen to your story.
It's true. And it's funny you brought that up, because when we first was starting to get into the energy of this, Jesus was coming through a lot to me. And I think there's a reason why people look to Jesus as their savior, because Jesus mastered being human. Mm. He mastered that energy of grace and compassion and, grace through suffering and being the example and being all the things that everything and nothing simultaneously. He was a perfect example of that. He led it. He didn't just teach it, right? He didn't make people do it. He wasn't out there corralling all the masses. He was just that example, and people saw his light. And I think that's why so many people worship him or put him up on this pedestal. And we do have a lot to learn from him, because he mastered being human. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ashley, do you have any questions, any comments? I feel like maybe I think it's an hour now. So maybe.
Yeah, we are. We are at an hour. I would like to make an offer, if that's okay for people. Tomorrow I am actually opening up my Unity experience. So I have my own modality. It's called Quantum Accelerated Alchemy Method, or QAM for short. And it's a way of mixing somatic healing, shamanism, 12D crystalline healing, the Akashic records. Like I put it, DNA restructuring and activation. All of this was put into this modality through my process of reclaiming and integrating those parts and pieces of myself, and then infusing my higher self and inner children into each and every chakra, and really coming into unity with all parts of myself so that I felt whole, so that my light was bright. And so when things got chaotic or crazy, I knew how to find that peace within me. I knew how to handle it. I knew how to clear it on the spot. And unity is something that I have never done anything like before. And it's solely focused on creating wholeness through embodiment of our wounds in a safe place with very easy to understand, simple teachings that we do repetitively. And then we bring in some massive energy work with these quantum transmissions. And I've done 2 beta tests on it already, and people their lives have completely flipped the other way. I mean, total rebirths. And so that opens tomorrow. And if anybody feels called to be a part of that, it is a digital experience. Everything will be available for you, and you'll have a support group. But if you're done fighting with the parts of yourself, with the regret and with the shame and with hiding your light and with not manifesting the life that you want, if you're ready to create the life you're totally desiring and be 100% there and on board and all in, whole and feeling amazing, then reach out to me, because I would love to have you. I made it ridiculously affordable because I feel that everybody needs to have this. Like, if they could just learn these frequencies and how to clear trauma on the spot and how to own those parts of themselves and know that they are enough right now, not when, right now, that their life could be so much more peaceful. That is true freedom right there. So that's what I got for you.
Thank you.
Can you give us the link for that, or do you want them to just reach out to you?
Let me see here. Hold on.
Is it your website /Unity?
It is, but I'm gonna do. There's a different one. I'm gonna post. See if I don't know. Can I post in the comments?
I believe you can.
I don't see where.
Or you can give it to me and I can post it.
Okay, I'll send it to. I'm gonna put it in the private chat.
Perfect.
I don't know if you can do that. So there's that one. And that they can learn more about it. And there's tons of reviews. Like I said, I've already had a whole bunch of people go through it twice, and it's been an amazing experience. And so if you have any questions about it, I'm always open. You can always message me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey.
All right. Well, I think if there's no other questions, we will head off. But thank you so much for sharing who Grace is to you and your experience. I think there was a lot of really valuable nuggets in there. It was a great conversation and transmission all in one.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I was excited to be a part of this.
Yes. And Aurora Grace says thank you. All right. Have a great night, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Thank you.
Bye.